After 10 years apart, Billionaire discovers his ex homeless. What happens next is heartwarming. Mark paced through the brisk Chicago streets, the weight of his success pressing down like an anchor. The city, alive with energy, buzzed around him, but he felt an emptiness gnawing at his heart. Just 10 years ago, he was an ambitious dreamer, envisioning a life filled with love and goals beside Sarah, his college sweetheart. Now he stood a billionaire, an icon of the American dream. Yet loneliness enveloped him like winter's chill. Then he saw her. A familiar profile hunched in a doorway, hair disheveled, eyes scanning the crowd. It was Sarah, his Sarah lost to the streets, battling shadows that life had cast on her. Disbelief rushed through him like a tidal wave. How could this happen? He approached cautiously, heart pounding. "Sarah?" he called, déjà vu flooding in. She turned, recognition flashing in those once bright eyes now dulled with hardship. Her face, once radiant, was now lined with struggles. Pain twisted in Mark's chest. Memories of shared laughter and dreams flickered in his mind like snapshots of a ghost. The stark contrast where they were versus where they ended up was too much to bear. "Mark?" she said, voice trembling, tears brimming. "Is it really you?" The air shifted, and he felt their past crashing down like a weight. She looked so fragile, yet her spirit still glimmered. He couldn't turn back now, trapped in their shared history. "Yeah, it's me," he managed, emotions swirling like a tempest. He felt the urge to wrap her in his arms, to protect her from the world, but the distance loomed large. What happened to her dreams? What fate did life conspire against the very woman he once adored? As they spoke, Mark's heart sank. Sarah's tales of loss and resilience as she fought the cold nights stuck in his mind. "I had a job, a home," she whispered. "It all fell apart when my mother died." Each word was a vicious reminder of the fragility of life. The city lights flickered, reflecting Sarah's struggles and dreams lost in dark alleys, damp corners, and vacant stares. His own success felt hollow beside her, like a facade. Mark's eyes wandered to his pristine watch, a symbol of his victory, just a cruel mockery now. Did money mean anything when someone you loved lost everything? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. His toyed emotions felt so raw, conflicting. The streets around them were bustling with life, families shared laughter. Dogs nestled beside their owners, but here they stood, two lives once intertwined, divided by circumstances they never envisioned. They had once dreamed of changing the world together, yet now Mark felt powerless. Torn between his cushy existence and a responsibility that weighed heavy on his conscience, he watched Sarah interacting with others on the street, her innate warmth shining through her hardship. Could he truly turn away? A moment hung suspended in time, the decision to save her life or their past. Could love bridge this extravagant gap? As chills danced through the air, those memories grew louder, and Mark realized change may start with him. The question echoed in his mind. Would he risk it all to lift Sarah from the shadows of despair, or would he turn away, shackled by privilege, erasing the echoes of their love? With every moment that passed, Mark could feel his heart pounding louder, drowning out the sounds of the bustling street around him. He stared into Sarah's eyes, an unspoken connection igniting between them, tugging at his very core. The years melted away, and the sharp edges of their past began to blur, reshaping the contours of what they could become again. "Why did you come back?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. Mark could sense the walls she had built around herself, layers of hurt and betrayal. He wanted to shatter those walls, but where to start? "I've been looking for you," he said finally, hope sneaking into his voice. "When I got the news, I just had to find you. I never stopped thinking about you." She shook her head, a bitter smile attempting to break through her bleak demeanor. "Thinking about me doesn't change anything. You have your life, all glitz and glamour. I can't go back to what we had." Hurt washed over him. Those words twisted like a knife in his chest. "But what if we could try? I can help you, Sarah." You don't have to do this alone. Her gaze fell to the ground, eyes tracing the cracks in the pavement as if seeking solace there. It's not that simple, Mark. I'm not the girl you left behind. Life has changed me. Tears glimmered as she lifted her chin, defiance mingling with despair. Look where I am. I'm not worthy of your world. Stop it. The sharpness in his voice made her glance back up. You're still you. The Sarah I love is still in there. I just have to find her again. Mark knew those words carried weight. It was a risk, an opening, but he had to take it. Caught in the moment, time stood still. Her pain radiated, but so did the flickers of hope. We can start over. Just one step at a time. Come with me. Let us find you a warm place to stay. We can, Mark, she interrupted, but he pressed on, heart racing, determination igniting. We can figure it out together. It doesn't have to be today or tomorrow. Just give us a chance. Please. Sarah bit her lip, conflicted. Mark could see her waging a battle within the desire for help warring against the humiliating thought of accepting it. He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. I won't let you down this time. The wind swirled around them, carrying voices and laughter from a nearby cafe. The scents of roasted coffee and fresh pastries hung heavy in the air, and for a fleeting moment, Mark imagined them sharing a meal, reminiscing about their college days, all beneath the soft glow of the Chicago streetlights. Her silence felt crushing, stretching into an eternity. Finally, she drew in a shaky breath. What if I fail? Then we'll figure it out. Together, he replied, his voice steady. You're worth it, Sarah. You always were. A flicker of hope crossed her features, a glimmer that perhaps this wasn't just another false promise. Moments ticked by as they stood under the fluorescent lights, letting the gravity of Mark's offer settle between them. But just as a tentative smile began to spread across Sarah's face, a loud crash from the street behind them shattered the moment. The sound echoed, unexpected and terrifying. Mark turned instinctively, even as Sarah's face turned pallid, her past rushing back in a flash. Stay here, he said, his protective instincts kicking in, but she took his hand, grounding him. Mark locked eyes with her, reading the unspoken desperation in her gaze. Even as chaos erupted around them, one thought burned in his mind. The next step would determine their fate forever. As they took a step into the unknown, the looming shadows of the past threatened to consume them. Would they accept the challenge ahead, or would fear pull them apart once more? The crash echoed, a brutal reminder of the jagged path they had walked before. Mark's gut twisted as he instinctively tightened his grip on Sarah's hand. Her pulse raced beneath his fingers, and he could feel the urgency pulsing through both of them. What was that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear etched deep lines on her forehead, each one a mark of the struggles she had faced alone. I don't know, he replied, scanning the street where chaos began to unfold. People scattered, and a mixture of shouts and sirens pierced the air. Adrenaline surged through him. This wasn't how he had pictured their reunion. He wanted to take her away from all of it to a safer place, away from the memories that haunted her. But in that moment, rooted to the spot, he realized that fleeing wouldn't mend the cracks in their foundation. They needed to face things together. Let us move, he urged gently but firmly, leading her away from the scene. Sarah hesitated, glancing back as fear flickered in her eyes, but he tugged her forward. They wove through the crowd, the city itself a blur as their tangled past loomed over them like a dark cloud. Finding a quieter street felt like a small victory, but it wouldn't erase what was left behind. Mark led them to a small park, its benches worn yet welcoming. He found a seat and pulled Sarah down beside him, the weight of unspoken words resting heavily between them. Look, I know it's overwhelming, he said, searching her face for any signs of hope. Just breathe. It's not just the crash, Mark, she confessed, her voice breaking slightly. It's everything. The years without you. The feeling of being invisible. I don't know how to start over. Mark's heart twisted at her vulnerability. He wanted to tell her that it wasn't too late, that they could rebuild, piece by piece. We start now. One step at a time, he vowed, remembering the way they had tackled projects in college, combining their strengths to create something remarkable. He watched as she processed his words, her eyes clouded with doubt. And if I fall? He reached out, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Then I'll be there to catch you. I promise. The weight of his words hung in the air, a powerful reminder of the trust that had once driven them. Her gaze softened momentarily, a glimmer beneath the fear. Just then, the sunlight broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow on her face. The shadows of their past retreated, if only for a moment. "It's been so long," she murmured. "Too long," he replied, warmth spreading in his chest. "But it can change." Mark leaned closer, driven by a sudden urge to break the distance that had festered for so long. "What do you say we start with lunch? My treat. Somewhere cozy where we can talk without the chaos." Her brow furrowed again, another layer of hesitation creeping in. "And what if I ruin it all?" He let out a laugh, light and genuine. "Sarah, we can't ruin something that hasn't even begun yet." Just as he expected a response, a harsh sound sliced through the calm, a shout followed by a terrified scream that echoed around them. Panic surged through Mark as he turned to see a figure stumbling into view, panic etched on their face. "Mark." The stranger's voice sounded frantic, drawing his attention away from Sarah. "You need to help." His heart raced as he faced the chaos again. "What now?" Sarah's fingers tightened around his wrist, drawing his attention back to her troubled expression. "What is happening?" Mark had no answers. Just when they felt they were on the brink of something beautiful, the world around them erupted again. The next moment felt destined to unravel everything they had just started to rebuild. With a deep breath, he stood up, instinctually wanting to protect her. Stay here, no matter what. But the fire in her gaze told him the truth. She wouldn't let him face whatever was coming alone. As they prepared to take on the chaos together, Mark could only think of one thing. Would they find their way through, or would this be the fracture that defined them? Mark stepped forward, pulling Sarah along with him. The scene before them was a blur of panic and urgency. A crowd had started to gather, voices blending into an anxious murmur. The stranger was still stumbling lightly, desperation etched on his features. "What happened?" Mark asked, instinctively moving closer, his eyes darting around for any signs of danger. "We need to get them out. There's a car overturned. Someone might be trapped." The stranger's voice was strained, fear punctuating every word. Mark felt the energy shift around him, a wave of fear and concern sweeping through the crowd. He glanced at Sarah, and he could see the uncertainty swimming in her eyes. "We have to help," he said, almost pleading. "We can't just stand here." "No," she whispered, clearly torn. "Mark, what if it's dangerous?" He took a breath, firmly holding her gaze. "It's our choice to step in or walk away. But I want to walk away. Not from this. Not from you." Her jaw tightened as she processed his words, and an idea flickered behind her eyes. She nodded, finally breaking free of the grip of fear. Perhaps it was his determination that sparked the courage buried deep inside her. Together, they pressed into the crowd, their hearts racing in sync. As they neared the chaotic scene, the smell of gasoline mixed with sweat filled the air, a sharp reminder of the reality unfolding in front of them. They reached the edge of a small crowd that had formed around an overturned car. Mark felt his pulse quicken. The woman trapped inside was clearly in distress, her voice muffled but urgent. "Help me, please." Mark fought through instinctual fear. "Get back." He barked at the bystanders. "We need to create some room." With Sarah by his side, he began directing people, organizing a chain of assistance. "We need to lift the car," he shouted, determination taking over as adrenaline poured through his veins. Her voice was steady as she joined him. "On my count. 1, 2, 3. With a group of volunteers, they heaved, the weight of the vehicle shifting just enough for the trapped woman to escape through the narrow gap. Time felt suspended as seconds stretched into eternity. Finally, the woman crawled out, her face pale but grateful. Relief washed over Mark as she stumbled into his arms, and the crowd erupted into applause. He looked over at Sarah, and a smile broke free. This was their moment together, pushing past the past that once held them back. But just as they started to step away from the scene, the sound of sirens grew louder. Paramedics arrived, urgency bubbling back to the surface. Mark, momentarily distracted by the chaos, turned to see Sarah's expression shift again. "Mark," she managed quietly, panic returning. "It's happening again, isn't it?" He took her hands, feeling the warmth of her touch as he stood firm. "No, we just saved a life, Sarah. We did that together. This is a new beginning." But the seeds of doubt still clung to the corners of her eyes. Just as Mark was about to assure her again, a familiar face broke through the crowd, halting him in his tracks. "Mark?" The voice wrapped around him like a ghost. He squinted into the dimming light, heart racing for a different reason now. The figure approached, and recognition struck him like a lightning bolt. "Is that really you?" the person asked, disbelief clinging to every syllable. As Sarah turned to follow his gaze, the weight of the moment felt almost dizzying. The past had a way of haunting the present, demanding to be confronted. In that instant, Mark knew they were about to enter a whole new chapter, one that could either bridge the distance that had grown between them or tear it wider. What would she say next? Would their growing bond withstand the return of old memories, or would the shadows drag them back into the storm? Mark's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the figure approaching. It was Caleb, his childhood friend, his confidant from years that felt both far away and achingly close. Mark had spent so many nights wondering where Caleb had gone, what had happened in the years since they'd lost touch. He felt Sarah's grip on his hand tighten, her uncertainty palpable. "Caleb," Mark finally managed, his voice emerging as a whisper sandwiched between disbelief and the weight of nostalgia. He took a step forward, drawn by the familiarity of the past. Caleb's face bore the marks of time, hardships etched into the lines around eyes that once sparkled with mischief. His clothes, once neatly pressed, were now frayed and worn, but his gaze held a flicker of the boy Mark used to know. "Wow, I thought you were gone for good," he said, an emotion that swirled somewhere between joy and sorrow flickering in his eyes. Mark's heart raced, confusion mingling with relief. He wanted to reach out, to embrace his friend. But that instinct twisted in knots as Sarah's voice cut through, a reminder of the moment and the layers of their own tangled history. "Mark, do you really know him?" she asked softly, though her words were urgent, filled with a concern that was more than just for the situation at hand. "This is Caleb. We grew up together," Mark explained, casting a glance at Sarah. Her eyes mirrored a reflection of his own fears. What would Caleb mean for them now? "We were practically inseparable." Caleb's expression shifted, understanding her apprehension. "I know things have changed, man. Trust me." "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I came looking for you. Just didn't know how to find you." Mark was flooded with questions. Why hadn't Caleb reached out? What had happened over the years? "I'm glad you found me," he replied, forcing the words past the worry gnawing at his insides. Sarah took a step back, instinctively separating herself from the moment. She felt like a bystander in a reunion that was overwhelming. While Mark's heart swelled with nostalgia, hers echoed with the uncertainty of what this meant for their path forward. "Are you okay? Really?" Mark's question hung in the air, the concern crisp against a backdrop of emotion. He looked over Caleb's shoulder, and for a moment, he lost sight of the crowd, the chaos, and the weight of the overturned car. Caleb nodded slowly, then his gaze fell. "It's been a rough road, but I need more than just a reunion. I need help." The honesty slammed into Mark. Memories dripped through his mind, Caleb laughing in the backyard, summers spent in the sun, all tied to a deeper connection that was now marred by longing and grief. "What do you need?" Mark asked, willing to forget everything else for just a moment. "I lost my way, man. I can't keep doing this alone," Caleb confessed, eyes darting between Mark and Sarah. "Maybe we can figure this out together?" Mark's heart thudded loudly in his chest. Did he have room to help a friend while still holding on to this new bond with Sarah? Sarah watched the exchange with bated breath. There it was again, life's harsh unpredictability forcing them into decisions they hadn't seen coming. Could Mark truly handle both the past and the present all at once? The shadows of doubt clouded her mind as she studied his face, uncertain of the path ahead. As Mark contemplated Caleb's words, the weight of his own feelings threatened to crush him. "Together?" he echoed, feeling the present tug at the seams of the past. Caleb's gaze flickered with hope as the sirens quieted down, leaving an echo of uncertainty ringing in the air. Mark's eyes darted to Sarah, searching for her approval, her understanding. It was now or never. But before he could make his move, Sarah's phone rang, slicing through the tension. She answered, a hint of anxiety creeping into her voice, leaving Mark to face Caleb. Was this reunion a blessing or a burden? The future loomed dauntingly ahead. "Mark," Caleb started, but uncertainty flickered between them once more. Would their friendship weather the storms that had already begun to tear at the seams? Mark's thoughts raced, and as he looked back at Sarah, he wondered, could loyalty to friends stand beside love? Mark's mind spun as he watched Sarah answer the phone. Her voice was tense, laced with an urgency that felt foreign to him after the warmth of Caleb's unexpected return. He turned back to Caleb, feeling a swell of emotions crashing around him. "What kind of help do you need?" Mark asked, his instinct to dive deeper into the conversation, to peel back the layers of uncertainty hovering like a dark cloud. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture Mark remembered from childhood. It was one of those little habits that never really changed, and it stirred a flicker of comfort within him. "It's complicated," Caleb started, looking down as though the pavement could somehow hold the answers. "I've been in a tough spot since everything went south after I left. I thought I could handle it on my own." "Handle what? Just tell me," Mark pressed, a surge of protectiveness rising within him. He realized he might be willing to drop everything to help this friend, the friend who'd once been his closest confidant, even if it meant straining the fragile bond he had with Sarah. Caleb shifted his weight, his vulnerability laid bare between them. "I lost my job, my apartment, pretty much everything," he said, the edges of his voice trembling. "I've been living on the streets for a while now, and I'll be honest, I don't know how to pull myself out of this." Though they hadn't seen each other in years, Mark felt an acute sense of betrayal at life's randomness. How had this once vibrant boy transformed into a man who felt so defeated? He scolded himself for the years lost, for not reaching out. "Why didn't you say something?" Would VE what?" Caleb interrupted sharply, the frustration bleeding through. "You would VE helped? I didn't want to burden you. You had your own life, your own problems." The words were like a punch to Mark's gut. Did Caleb really think he would have turned his back? Sarah hung up the phone, striding toward them with an expression Mark couldn't quite read. "That was Mia," she said, a strange mix of disbelief on her face. "The police have cleared the accident, everyone is fine, but they want to meet us at the cafe." "Good," Mark replied, the tension tight in his chest. It was an escape route, another moment to breathe, but his attention was still chained to Caleb. "We can talk more about this at the cafe." Caleb's eyes widened slightly. "The cafe? You have a place for me?" The light of hope flickered again, and Mark could see it, a spark waiting to be reignited. Mark nodded. "Of course. You need a place to stay, right? We can sort this out." But he felt the weight of Sarah's gaze on him. Her uncertainty was palpable. The lunch they had planned suddenly seemed monumental, weighed down by layers of new complexities. Was it fair to pull Caleb into their lives, into their world that had just begun to feel whole again? "Mark," Sarah said quietly, a note of concern wrapping around her words. "Are you sure you're ready for this? It can change everything." He looked at her, heart pounding. "I can't just walk away from him, Sarah. Not when he needs me." Caleb took a small step forward, a tentative smile breaking through the shadows. "You're really willing to help? After everything?" Mark nodded, resolve flooding his chest. The warmth of an old friendship was making the earth shift underfoot, and he was ready for uncertainty, ready to bridge the gaps in their past. As they started walking toward the cafe, a voice in the back of Mark's mind whispered doubts, how this reunion could threaten the very connection he was trying to build with Sarah. But it was too late for second-guessing. Caleb tugged at Mark's sleeve, dragging him into the present. "You won't regret this, I promise." But could Mark keep that promise not only for Caleb, but for Sarah as well? The question loomed large as they stepped into the dim cafe, welcoming light flickering around them. In that moment, a deep breath filled Mark's lungs. Whatever unfolded next, he was ready to tackle it head-on. But as they entered, he couldn't shake the feeling that clarity might come with a price he hadn't considered yet. When would the past and present collide, and which would pay the price? The cafe buzzed with the sound of chatter and clinking dishes. Mark led the way, Caleb just a step behind, his eyes darting around like a kid in a candy store. Memories flooded Mark as he settled into a booth. The stained wood of the table felt familiar, the same as when they were teenagers, hiding from the world over cups of steaming hot chocolate. "Do you still take yours with extra marshmallows?" Mark joked, hoping to break the tension. Caleb's laugh rang out, a sound tinged with hesitation, yet it lit up his face. "Yeah, I do, only if I can find someone to buy it for me," he replied softly, casting a sideways glance at Sarah. She sat across from them, her expression indecipherable, lips pressed in a thin line. "Coffee, please," Sarah said to the waitress, ignoring any small talk. Her focus was sharp, focused on the moment, and on Caleb, which unnerved Mark. He had hoped for a warm reunion, a patchwork quilt of fond memories, not this awkward scenario littered with unspoken words hanging in the air like stale smoke. Caleb fidgeted in his seat, overwhelmed by the disarray of their reunion. "Look, I didn't mean to just show up out of nowhere." "I know," Mark interrupted, determined to encourage his friend. "I want to hear it. I want to know what happened." He could see the way Caleb clenched his fists, the tension coursing through him like electric currents. With a deep breath, Caleb replied, "After I left town, I thought I could find my way. I took a chance at this startup, but they went under. I burned through my savings and thought about moving back, but I didn't want anyone to see me fail. I thought I could make it alone." Sarah's eyes softened momentarily, and Mark saw a flicker of empathy. It was a resurrection of the bond they previously shared, even if it had been marred by years and distance. "Caleb, you're not a burden. You're my friend," Mark urged, his voice steady, but beneath it lay the weight of so many years unspoken. "We can figure this out together. I won't leave you to face this alone." Caleb looked at him, a mix of gratitude and confusion clouding his gaze. "Really? You do that? I can't ask you to." Something tightened in Mark's chest, a mix of worry and lucky relief. "You're not asking. I'm offering. You have to let me help." The urgency in his words hung in the air. Sarah finally broke her silence, and her voice cut through the moment. "This isn't just about you two. It's about us. Mark, you don't even know what this means for our life. For our plans." Her frustration splattered the table and made Caleb shrink back into his seat. Mark felt the tension prick at him again, and he locked his gaze with her. "Sarah, I can't just abandon him. He needs someone. Think about how far we've come. It's our chance to do something good." The waitress returned with steaming cups, and when she placed Caleb's drink down a melting mountain of marshmallows, he let out a shaky laugh. "You remembered," he said softly, as if it were the kindest gesture in the world. Mark caught the flicker of tenderness in Sarah's eyes as she held her cup. "I remember everything about you too," she said, her voice low and almost haunting in its warmth. The air in the cafe weighed heavily around them now, charged with unresolved emotions and unspoken words. Mark felt the undercurrents grasping at him, threatening to pull him into deeper waters. Every second felt monumental, and as he locked eyes with Caleb, he sensed the urgency of the moment. "Maybe I could crash at your place, just until I get back on my feet," Caleb suggested, optimism edging into his tone. "But what about us? What about our home?" Sarah protested, anxiety limping across her forehead. Mark's heart began to race. He turned his attention fully to Caleb and then back to Sarah. "I don't know," he murmured, "but maybe living with us doesn't have to break us. Maybe it can heal us, all of us." Just as he thought the pieces were falling into place, something churned in him. Was he ready for the truths hidden beneath these layers? The question lingered, hanging uncomfortably in the in-between of friendship and commitment. As Mark took a sip of his coffee, he felt the warmth scorch his throat. Would their generosity be the bridge between failure and rebuilding? Or would it tear everything apart? "I need to know if we're going to trust each other, are we?" The words left his lips heavy with unspoken weight, and as he looked between them, one thought loomed. Who would make the first move to uncover the past that might still threaten their future? The silence stretched between them, a tension as sharp as the clinking of cups in the background. Caleb fidgeted again, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. Mark could feel Caleb's anxiety like a pulse in the room. Sarah's expression was fierce, yet behind her concern was a glimmer of something else, almost as if she, too, was wrestling with old memories. Mark leaned forward, desperate to bridge the gap. "Caleb, staying with us isn't just about you. It's about rebuilding what we lost. It's about finding a way back to each other." Caleb swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Mark and Sarah. "What if I'm a constant reminder of how things didn't work out? What if this is just going to throw everything into chaos? You two have built a life." Sarah's features softened a little, but the joy she once held when she looked at Caleb seemed muddied. "You're not chaos, Caleb. You're a piece of our past. But this is also about now, about us, and what we've built." Mark shifted in his seat, the weight of their shared history pressing heavy on his shoulders. We have a chance to make things different. We're older. We've learned from our mistakes. Maybe we can be a team again. Caleb closed his eyes briefly, losing himself in thought. I don't want to intrude. I just thought I could find a way back in. Coming back is the first step, Mark whispered, his heart racing for Caleb's acceptance. He could see how the words resonated within his friend, but the uncertainty loomed large in Caleb's eyes. After what felt like an eternity, Caleb sighed. Okay, but I can't just crash at your place for free. I want to contribute. I want to prove I'm moving forward. You're not some charity case, Sarah intervened, her voice now surprisingly gentle. We're in this together. We all have pieces to bring to the table. Caleb nodded hesitantly, glancing toward the window where the world outside moved on blissfully unaware of their turmoil. It was busy and loud, unlike the stillness that had settled around their table. I would hate to ruin this moment, to push both of you away, he said quietly. Mark reached out, resting a hand on Caleb's arm. You won T. We're stronger than that. No one is perfect, and that's okay. As their eyes locked, Mark felt the flicker of hope ignite within him again. Caleb's smile, though timid, was sincere. But how do we move forward? Caleb asked, almost pleading. What if we start by talking? Sarah suggested. Not just past mistakes, but the dreams we've all had. What we want moving on together instead of apart. The words hung in the space between them like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. Caleb looked from Mark to Sarah, visibly pondering what might come next. You think that will work? After everything? Nothing worth having is easy, Mark said. But we've been through storms before. And if we can get through those together, maybe we can survive this. Each drink unwrapped layers of vulnerability they had carried for years. Soon, the cafe arranged its sounds around their united breaths. Sarah smiled, proving there was still warmth there, and Caleb met her gaze, searching for understanding. Okay, then, Caleb said finally, a hint of determination breaking through the cracks. Let us figure out what happens next. Mark inhaled with relief, warmth spreading through him. It felt like foundations were shifting, and with the crack of fate, maybe they could build something stronger. But just as the atmosphere started to lighten, the waitress approached the table once again, her voice bubbly yet intrusive. Excuse me, guys, but we're closing soon. Mark looked at Caleb and Sarah, an unspoken fear creeping back in. Would this relief be temporary? Let us leave together, Sarah said, her eyes suddenly distant, as if she were thinking of everyone in their lives and the paths they had chosen. And then we'll go from there, Mark added, heart pounding. As they stepped into the chilly air outside, Mark couldn't shake off the feeling that their lives were about to intertwine in a reflection of a new beginning. But at the same time, a nagging question echoed, repeatedly in his mind. What darker truths still lurked beneath the surface, waiting for them to confront? It was only the beginning of a long and winding road, and he feared they might not all make it through intact. The cold air hit them like a brisk embrace, the night wrapped in shadows and whispers. Mark's breath formed puffs of steam that floated into the dark above. He felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The tension at the cafe had given way to a silence filled with unspoken hopes and fears. Are you all right? Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the chill. Mark glanced at her, the warmth of her concern igniting a flicker of gratitude within him. Yeah, just wondering what comes next. Caleb walked a step behind them, lost in contemplation. His earlier determination seemed to waver under the weight of the night. Mark felt a surge of protective instinct for his friend. Caleb had fought demons they all wished could stay buried, but now he had opened the door to possibility. What do you want, Caleb? Mark asked, his tone steady. Seriously, we're here, and it's your turn to speak up. Caleb stopped walking, the streetlight above shining down and illuminating the uncertain lines on his face. I want to feel like I belong again, like I'm not just this ghost who used to matter. Let us make that happen, Sarah said, her voice soft yet resolute. We can figure out how to come together. But it starts with all of us being honest. A question flickered through Mark's mind. Were they truly ready to confront the past? The weight of it all felt oppressive, yet there was a lightness in the air around them, a suggestion of hope that maybe they could find their way together. Caleb shoved his hands deep into the pockets of his jacket, his gaze dropping to the pavement. I've been living through the wreckage I caused for so long. I lost sight of who I was, and now I don't know how to reconnect with that version of me. Reconnection starts with truth, Mark said gently. We can't change what happened, but we can shape what's next. We all have scars, but maybe they remind us of how far we've come. There was a pause, a moment where the world seemed to congeal into that shared understanding. Caleb looked up then, his expression shifting from doubt to something softer, more vulnerable. I never wanted to hurt either of you. I didn't realize until now how much losing you both hurt me. Mark took a step closer, feeling the space between them diminish. You're not alone in this. Yeah, Sarah chimed in. We all have our stories. Just like we have to own our happiness, we need to own our shared pain. Let us meet somewhere not defined by our mistakes. But before he could respond, an unexpected sound caught their attention, a muffled commotion coming from a nearby alley. A flicker of caution replaced the hopeful atmosphere. Mark felt his heart quicken. What's that? They gathered closer, shadows moving nervously just beyond the light of the street lamp. Quiet whispers turned into shouts, and Mark's protective instinct flared again. Should we go check it out? Caleb asked, uncertainty dripping from his voice. Mark exchanged looks with Sarah. They were at a crossroads, risk stepping into danger or retreat into the safety they'd begun to forge. Let us see what's going on, he decided. We can't ignore it. As they stepped cautiously into the alley's embrace, a surge of adrenaline coursed through Mark. Whatever awaited them could either be a distraction from their fragile hope or an event that would further intertwine their paths. In that moment, a shout rang out, raw and desperate, shaking the foundations of their newfound resolve. Help! Somebody please! Let us go! Mark shouted as he moved into the dimness, urgency coursing through him. They didn't know what they would find, but deep down, a single truth lingered. Sometimes, the act of reaching out to others could lead to unexpected revelations within themselves. What lay ahead could change everything yet again, and as they ventured further into the unknown, the flicker of uncertainty danced again. What would they uncover in the shadows? The alley stretched before them, shrouded in darkness and thick with tension. Mark led the way, heart racing, every instinct pushing him forward. Behind him, he could sense Sarah and Caleb flanking him, equally pulled by the urgency of the unknown cry for help. Stay close, he instructed, feeling the weight of every second pass as they navigated through the clutter of discarded belongings and shadows. The desperation in the voice still echoed in his ears. Help! Somebody! Around a corner, they found a small gathering, a young man pinned to the ground by two others, struggling against their hold. Panic flickered in his eyes, and the sight sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through Mark's veins. Hey! Mark shouted, stepping closer. What is going on? The urgency in his voice rang out, firm and unwavering. The assailants turned, momentarily taken aback by their unexpected appearance. Mind your own business, one of them sneered. But Mark stood his ground, feeling the palpable connection of Sarah and Caleb's presence beside him, solidifying his resolve. Let him go, Mark demanded, fists clenching with determination. You don't need to do this. What did you say? The man sneered again, advancing toward Mark with aggression. In an instant, Sarah stepped forward, her voice a fierce anchor. You don't have to hurt anyone, she said with unwavering clarity. Walk away. Now. The shift was electric. Mark could feel their combined strength pushing against the tight air. Caleb's jaw tightened beside him, an unspoken solidarity in their stance. For so long, they had felt powerless against their own struggles. Now they were pushing against someone else's darkness, taking control where they could. As the tension escalated, the young man on the ground strained against his captors. Please, just let me go, he gasped, desperation cracking through the surface. Mark took a step closer, heart pounding. We can help you, he said, eyes locked onto the young man's, willing him to feel their support. You're not alone. We won't let them hurt you. With a sudden movement, the assailants released their hold, caught off guard by the solidarity present in the trio before them. The young man scrambled to his feet, wide-eyed and panting. The sound of scuffling feet echoed through the alley. Run, man. We've got your back, Caleb shouted, confidence surging through his voice, emboldening the young man who dashed past them into the night. What just happened? One of the assailants spat, but before they could react, Mark took a step forward, refusing to cower. We're stepping in for the people who can't fight for themselves, Mark declared loud enough for them to hear, feeling empowered by the unfolding moment. Leave now, and you won't get hurt. The tension shifted, the force of their unity hanging in the air. The assailants exchanged worried glances, clearly unprepared for the fierce camaraderie radiating from Mark, Sarah, and Caleb. And just like that, without another word, they backed away into the shadows, the darkness swallowing them whole. Are you all right? Mark turned to the young man, who stood trembling but now free. Thank you, the young guy stammered. I thought I was done for. Before he could respond, Sarah stepped in, her nurturing spirit softening the atmosphere. Let us get you somewhere safe, she said, and just like that, the fear in the moment began to thaw under the warmth of their connection. As they all regrouped, Mark caught Caleb's eye. The defeat he had sensed before had lifted slightly, replaced by the spark of hope. You see, together, we can truly make a difference, Mark said, his voice steadying them like an anchor. Caleb nodded slowly, realizing the weight of that moment. Maybe, just maybe, we can be a team again. As they ventured back into the light of the street, the gravity of what had just happened settled upon them all. For the first time in a long while, Mark felt a glimmer of what it meant to be connected not only to his past, but to a hopeful future. Days turned into weeks, and their bond began to reshape itself. Caleb moved into their spare room, their home becoming a sanctuary for healing and growth. Conversations became deeper, covering dreams and desires, pain endured, and hopelessness embraced. In those shared moments, Mark and Sarah found new strength in one another, understanding the importance of climbing back together after life's relentless pull. One evening, gathered around the kitchen table, laughter rang bright, mixing with the aroma of fresh-baked cookies. They sat laden with stories shared, dreams rekindled, and hearts gradually mending. Sarah caught Mark's eye, a soft smile gracing her lips, an understanding that passed silently between them. This is what it's about, isn't it? She said, her voice ripe with warmth. Supporting each other, no matter how hard it gets? Mark nodded, feeling a warmth bloom inside him. Yes, we can create something beautiful from our past together. And just like that, with a sense of unity, they began again. Not just as lost souls seeking comfort, but as a family woven together, the past rectified not by erasure, but embraced as part of their story. As months passed, Mark's heart swelled each time he saw Sarah's smile grow brighter or Caleb's laughter blend into their lives. Their journey became anchored in resilience and hope, pushing past the confines of former shadows. They had faced fears, tackled challenges, and discovered depths they hadn't known existed. Walking hand in hand toward a future illuminated by support and love, they knew they were no longer a product of their past, but the architects of new beginnings. And that night, as laughter filled the room, a beautiful truth settled in. Love, no matter how tested, could always find its way home. Mark took a deep breath and raised his glass to the future, to new beginnings, together. And in the warmth of that shared moment, everything felt just right. Now, if you felt that this story touched your heart, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread the love. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us discuss this transformation together. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation in their lives. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.